Hello everyone, welcome to Stars and Bars. I'm Aubrey, and I know you can't see me right now, but I am here to tell you that you are on part 2 of the Mac Miller video. If you have not seen part 1, please go ahead and click in the upper right hand corner right now or in the description to watch part 1 before you watch part 2. And that's all I've got for you. Enjoy the video. Our first trait for the day is optimism, which is bestowed upon Mac by his heavily trine Jupiter. And this trait is one that Mac was known for and will always be a massive part of his legacy and memory. On the intro to Kids, which is called Kickin' Incredibly Dope Shit, Mac starts us off with a few lyrical references to his optimism, including we just trying to keep it cool, so we blast the AC, some people hate, we tell them it's all gravy, and being young so fun, I don't ever want to age. The following track, Outside, gives us more optimism. He says, my life the topic of a lullaby, whereas many other rappers might refer to their life as, a heavy metal song. Oftentimes, the struggle of a rapper is much more important than his optimism. So this positive analogy, I think, is really awesome and sets him apart from other rappers. He later says, this life is good, don't let it go to waste, enjoy the place that you live in at, we just some kids and this world is our playground. So lots of Jupiter in this song. We get more feel-good positive energy on the chorus of Face in the Crowd, which says, don't you feel good, don't you feel great, I feel so fly and I hope you can relate. The second verse says, usually find me chilling up in Jupiter, I'm so happy when you're mad, which is so funny. I don't know if Mac Miller knows about the Sagittarius influence in his chart, about what Jupiter means in astrology, but he's using this line to say that when you guys are mad, I'm happy, I'm on Jupiter, and I think that that is so awesome. I mean, he's basically using astrology for this line. And I really do wish that I could ask him if he knew what he was saying there. Moving on to Best Day Ever, the opening track of the same name unsurprisingly touches on Mac's cheerful disposition on the chorus. No matter where life takes me, you'll find me with a smile, pursuit to be happy, gonna be laughing like a child. I never thought life would be this sweet, it got me cheesing from cheek to cheek. Life couldn't get better, this gonna be the best day ever. He also uses the line thumbs up a few times in verse 2. So from the title to the end, this song is a great representation of optimism. We see more positivity on She Said, where Mac says, me, I get high, make music for a living. If that ain't the best job, then give me your opinion, 'cause I love life. Life Ain't Easy is a song with a title that sounds pessimistic, but it's really about how much it pays off to work hard towards dreams. The chorus says, when I get old, I'ma be real cool, whole bunch of stories for the neighborhood kids, tell them to believe they'll be making it big. Mac has big plans for his life and career and wants others to be as excited about their future as he is for his. Moving on to Blue Slide Park, PA Nights gives us a couple optimistic references, including the chorus, where Mac says, bullshit's always gonna be bullshit, so make a toast to the good life. And in verse 2, happy as hell, MDMA yo. A few lines later, he says, thinking about my people who was murdered in the Holocaust, got me thankful for life by itself. Mac Miller was raised Jewish, so that's where that comes from. He sees how life could be different and is thankful for how it is. Similar to Life Ain't Easy from Best Day Ever, the song Under the Weather has a negative sounding title, but still a positive message. In verse 1, he says, I'm working all the time, never getting me a break, but fuck it, that's fine, not a minute go to waste. Then in the first bridge, he says, I know it sucks with a 9 to 5, but everything will be all right. The second bridge says, under the weather, shit'll get better, the hate ain't gonna last forever, so I just smile, it's whatever, don't let nobody say you can't. Even when things aren't ideal, Mac maintains a positive outlook. On Up All Night, verse 1 says, life's so good, please enjoy it. There are lots of these little happy one-liners in Mac's music, by the way, this life is good, please enjoy it type thing. But we obviously aren't addressing all of them for the sake of not being too repetitive. Next, we have Macadelic. On the hit single Loud, we see a slightly different angle on optimism. We see him being confident in his future, saying, I'm gonna get that Grammy soon, fuck your magazine, Jordan gonna hand me shoes, still fuck your magazine. So Mac is optimistic. He has no doubt that he is gonna be huge, and he was absolutely right. The bridge to aliens fighting robots brings us a classic happy-go-lucky Mac line, saying, life a cliche, it ain't a bad one. First the plane land, and then the bags come. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And the aptly named track Sunlight provides a little bit more optimism, starting with, it's been so dark outside that I figured I'd turn a couple lights on real quick, which I love that for an intro. And in the verse, he says, here I am, looking in the mirror, and all I see is me, I'm at peace, which I also love. Now, on Macadelic, these are actually the only 3 examples I could really find of optimism. And to put that into perspective, for the last few albums, I had to pick the top 3 most relevant ones, whereas for this one, that's really all there was to work with. So you can see how Mac's albums are kind of taking a negative trend away from being so positive, at least at the beginning of his discography. Our next project is Watching Movies with the Sound Off, and this album overall, as we've already discussed, is much less optimistic than the others. There's really only 2 good examples of it. One of them is on a song called I Am Who Am, wherein on the chorus, Nikki Rhonda sings, it's a gift, our time to be alive, no earthly vehicle can contain this drive. But this song also includes references to suicidal ideation, so this chorus is probably mostly meant to contrast with the rest of the song and album and not to be especially optimistic. The only other reference to optimism on this album is on OK, feat. Tyler the Creator. At the end of verse 1, Mac says, album filled with all sad songs, but this the one that I can laugh on. So he's very aware that he's not taking the same path that he usually does on his albums, and that this one is sadder, but he can poke fun at himself for that too, in classic Sagittarian fashion. Back to Good AM, we have track 2, which is called Brand Name. He says, American Ninja to these obstacles, no stopping us, we on the move. He once again is optimistic about his abilities and feels that he is unstoppable. On track 2, 100 Grandkids, he says, I got a problem, I'ma take care of it, weight I'm carrying, gotta let it go, it won't hold me down no more, which is a great thing to hear after listening to Watching Movies and seeing how sad he was on that album. And finally on this album, we have the classic chorus line of the single Weekend, where Mac says, I'll be good by the weekend, everything good by the weekend. This song is possibly more about partying or about a lack of responsibility than it is about optimism, but it's hard telling, and either way it sounds pretty optimistic. The next album is The Divine Feminine. Track 5, Cinderella, is a love song confirmed to be dedicated to Ariana Grande, who we have a video on, but I'm all out of YouTube cards to give you a link, so you'll have to go to my channel if you want to see that. On part 2 of this song, which is called Right After Love, Mac talks about how happy that Ariana was making him at the time, saying, all my days now, they changin', I got angels, no more Satan, looks like God's on my side this time. It's great to see Mac refine joy on this album that he seemed to have lost on Watching Movies. The refrain of this song also says, under the weather, feel much better when that weather isn't rain. And that's really the only example of optimism on this album. It's a concept album and it's really brief, so it makes sense though that this wouldn't be a huge part of this one. After The Divine Feminine, we have Swimming. Track 1, Come Back to Earth, solidifies the swimming analogy and shows that Mac is working toward balance. He says, I was drowning, but now I'm swimming through stressful waters to relief. On the next track, Hurt Feelings, he says, used to be feeling depressed, now that I'm living, I'm a little obsessed. So once again, he's feeling optimistic due to his success and the brightness of his future. The song Self-Care also shows us some positivity. On the pre-chorus, he says, self-care, I'm treating me right. Hell yeah, we gonna be alright. So he seems to be feeling really positive on this song. There's also a part 2 to this song called Oblivion, where he says, I got all the time in the world, so for now I'm just chillin', plus I know it's a beautiful feeling in oblivion, which seems to say perhaps that he is happy to not be in the public eye as much as he was before, but it's not totally clear. And sadly, on Circles, Mac's most recent album, optimism and positivity are unfortunately not really referenced very much on this album. And if they are, they're quite clearly references to substance abuse or partying. And I don't really think that those count that much. But it is very sad to see that his final album was the one that perhaps he was suffering through the most. All right. We are on trait number 2, which is inner sensitivity. This is due to Mac's heavily aspected Cancer moon. So we are back to Kids, album number 1. While Mac's discography features an overall downward trend in optimism, as he starts expressing his harder emotions more, I think we'll see an upward trend in sensitivity as he moves on from the goofy persona of his earlier projects and becomes more candid and emotionally expressive. On Kids, Good Evening gives a brief reference to Mac's sensitivity, saying, put my heart up on the page and the song gonna cry. Our first detailed reference of sensitivity on Kids is on All I Want Is You, which is a sweet love song. On the chorus, he says, I don't want to share you. We could be together, but you scared to. I ain't gonna leave you. My peoples tell me that I should, but I need you. And on Poppy, a song to Mac's late grandpa, Max shows us another angle on sensitivity, saying, you love me more than I've been loved before, and that's a type of thing that everybody ignores, but not me. You got me always and forever, Poppy, which is so sweet. Moving on to Best Day Ever, track 5, I'll Be There, is a song to Mac's mom, so no surprise here that we see some sensitivity. In the quest to be a man, you start to learn you need your family. It wasn't for them, I'd be way closer to insanity. He goes on to reminisce on memories of his mother, and then closes with a call to action for his audience to call their mothers. And that's really the only example for Best Day Ever. Blue Slide Park doesn't really touch on sensitivity a whole lot. It's a lot more of a fun album. But after Blue Slide Park, you'll find that things get a lot more candid and emotional. Starting with The Morning After from Macadelic. On this song, he discusses the pain that he feels that drives him to rely on drugs or women to keep him balanced. He says, something about the pain makes me want more. I hope one day it'll all make sense. And later on the bridge, he says, you get me high, girl, scared to overdose. On track 10 of Macadelic, 1 through 8, he opens with, sometimes I see the world for how fucked up it really is. I tell myself I'll be the one to make a change in it. And we see more romantic sensitivity on Clarity, where he says, you take away the pain and I thank you for that. If I ever get the chance, bet I'm paying you back. There are also other sweet lines similar to that on the song. Next, we have Watching Movies with the Sound Off, which is obviously an album with a lot of sensitivity. It is, after all, an album filled with all sad songs. Track 1, The Star Room, has many lines that express this, one of them being, I'm still trapped inside my head, it kind of feel like it's a purgatory, dealing with these demons. And we already talked about I Am Who Am, of which the overall theme is to appreciate life, but Mac shows sympathy and understanding toward depression on this song as well. He says, how many been empty and holding aggression, close to depression, we wonder about life, but none of us willing to learn. Which says to me that when you are depressed, you don't have the motivation to get out and experience life, but that's also part of what makes you feel so depressed. In the next verse, he says, forfeit in the war, he lays his sword down and walks away, grabs a 40 from the corner store, begins to contemplate, dealing with death like you work in the morgue. So this song gets pretty dark and deep into Mac's emotional self. Finally, we have Remember, which is a song to Mac's friend Ruben, who passed away shortly before the song was created. At the end of verse 2, Mac says, life's short, don't ever question the length. It's cool to cry, don't ever question your strength. And that last bit is a very Cancer moon thing to say. Next we have Good AM. Starting with Weekend, Mac says, I've been having trouble sleeping, battling these demons, wondering what's the thing that keeps me breathing. Is it money, fame, or neither? ROS brings back Mac's romantic sensitivity, saying you should probably take your shoes off because you've been running through my mind. And he also says, give me attention, I want to take care of you, marry you. More big Cancer moon vibes. And on Jump, he says, my mind on the run, I won't sleep tonight, looking all around, what has the world become? So we see a little bit more of the anxiety side of Mac's sensitivity and how the state of the world plays a part in that. Next we have the Divine Feminine. Mac starts off this sensitive album with verse 1 of track 1, Congratulations, where he says, the sun don't shine when I'm alone, I lose my mind and I lose control. Then there are lots of sweet romantic lines after that are also sensitive. On Soulmate, he says, I think you're too divine for my human mind, but when I'm with you, what do? Bring me to life. So the sensitivity we're seeing on this album is much more romance-centric. And my favorite part, Feat. Ariana Grande, is such a sweet duet. And while the two did date, the song was created beforehand. He says, you just don't know how beautiful you are, and baby, that's my favorite part. It'll be all right, babe. See me, I got you covered. I'm gonna be your lover. You might be the one. Next, we have Swimming. On track 1, Come Back to Earth, Mac says, I'll do anything for a way out of my head. And then similarly, on Perfecto, he says, on the surface, I look so fine, but really I'm bugging. Both of these emphasize the inner part of inner sensitivity and show the racing thoughts that Mac's dealing with over the course of the album. And finally, we're back to the front with Circles. Track 4, Good News, was Mac's first official release since his death. He says, a lot of things I regret, but I just say I forget. Why can't it just be easy? Why does everyone need me to stay? Can I get a break? I wish that I could just get out my goddamn way, which is hard to hear. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard series of lyrics there. And then the chorus says, good news, that's all they want to hear. They don't like it when I'm down. Mac is very honest about his mental health on this album, and especially on this song, despite feeling like nobody wants to hear it. Next, we have I Can See, where he says, hitting the ground, I fell from the top, you never expect to drop, which is another hard lyric to hear or read. And then on Woods, he says, don't run away, love, hate love, heartbreak will have you bankrupt, showing how heartbreak has made him feel. And finally, we are on our final trait, which is self-awareness, and he gets that trait from having his sun opposite his moon in his natal chart. Mac is able to call himself out on any illogical, unhealthy, or ignorant behavior he exhibits, as well as understanding his talents and the ways that he contributes to the world. Starting with Kids, we have the song Outside, where he says, I got the gift of gab, something that you wish you had. Mac knew even before he blew up how colloquially skilled he was. And he has many references to this skill and potential, but I won't bother you with all of them. Another common self-aware reference Mac often makes is with regard to his spending habits. An example of this is on Don't Mind If I Do, where he says, they give me money, but I gotta go and spend it. And then finally, we have All I Want Is You, where he says, they told me never fall in love, it never works out in your favor, you way too young, and right now that's just human nature, you think you love her, but you don't, you think you gonna be with her for the rest of your life, you probably won't. Mac is aware that young love often fails, but goes on to express his strong feelings from the last section. The only song on Best Day Ever that really refers to this, that is unique to the ones that we've just discussed, is the final track, Keep Floatin', where he says, hi to get by, that's how we livin' in this day and age. I bring some color to a world that's filled with shades and gray. This is a double whammy of self-awareness. He references his use of drugs to numb pain and keep motivated, as well as referencing his ability to bring light and fun to an otherwise dark situation. On Blue Slide Park, a track on the album of the same name, Mac says, daughters, moms kind of want me neutered, which is a funny reference, basically saying that he's a bad influence in the eyes of mothers of women he's pursuing. Another example of Mac recognizing his lyrical skill comes on Frick Park Market, where he says, my pen game is something you motherfuckers have never seen. And Mac, in many opinions, is a legend, so I would say that that counts as self-awareness. Finally, on one last thing, Mac recognizes that as an adolescent, he wasn't the type people expect to be so talented or would get so rich and famous. He says, just that normal kid in class you was sitting behind, didn't really pay attention to him, spitting his rhymes, but now you see his car, trying getting inside. Moving on to Macadelic, we just have one example, which is on 1 through 8. He says, I'm getting high to forget about the lows though, get a paycheck, spend it all on polo, designer brands cover up my insecurities. And Mac shows he's aware of his escapism tendencies, his spending, and his insecurities all at once. Next we have Good AM. The opening of track 10, G's, says, ignorant ass white kid, but I'm still bicycling and recycling, and I'm still eating gummy bear vitamins. Mac realizes the stereotypes he is aligned with and doesn't align with, and doesn't pretend to be anything besides himself. On Aquarium, the chorus says, I'm wearing a blindfold, like where did the time go? To me, this sounds like he knows his life is passing so quickly because of his choices. And finally, on OK, he says, I got rich from these rap songs, bought a drug problem, now the cash gone. Mac is not lost in his addiction or its tendency to burn his money away in the way that a lot of people describe addiction a lot of the time. He is well aware of what's going on. Moving on to Good AM. I know we've talked about Weekend in every section, but also many examples of self-awareness show up on this song. He says, getting high to deal with my problems, and then, doctor, will you help me get me healthy? Not only does Mac realize that he has a problem, but that he will need help solving it. On Ascension, he says, dear family, my sanity go down when my cash go up, which is pretty self-explanatory, very self-aware. And finally, on The Festival, he says, I don't know who I am, I'm so good at doing impressions though, which shows the mutability in his personality, possibly due to the pressures of fame causing him to want to project a different personality than his own. Once again, we are at the Divine Feminine, and once again, there's not really a good example on this one. Self-awareness just isn't a big part of the concept of this album. So that brings us forward to Swimming. On Self-Care, Mac says, climbing over that wall, I remember, yes, I remember, yes, I remember it all. Swear the height be too tall, so like September, I fall. To me, this just sounds like a description of the back and forth of addiction. He perceives problems as impossible to get past without drugs, and then relapses. He does this time and time again. Mac also passed in September, so this line did not age very well in the opinion of a lot of fans, and I'm sure his loved ones. Next we have Small Worlds, where he said, I might trip, I never fall, God knows I came close, I know I probably need to do better, keep my shit together, I can feel my fingers slipping, in a motherfucking instant I'll be gone. Which is a little too much self-awareness, possibly. Moving on for the last time to Circles. On Good News, Mac says, I wish that I could just get out of my goddamn way, and why I gotta build something beautiful just to set it on fire. He recognizes his self-destructive tendencies. On Hand-Me-Downs, he said, I made it, but I hate once I build it, I break it down, which is very similar to the last line. And on Hands, he says, you throw me off my high horse, I'd probably fall to my death. So recognizing that he has a big ego, possibly an ego that is also fragile. And that's where we're going to call it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to leave me a comment telling me what you think, your favorite Mac Miller album, and who you want to learn about next. And if you haven't already, hit that like and that subscribe so you never miss a video. And until next time, have a great rest of your day.